Hi, welcome back to another episode of Thinking Inside the Box on Noah's Ark. Today, I'm going to show you 5 different ways to turn a mono signal into a stereo source. So in other words, how to widen your mono sources in a mix. So let's first listen to a track mixed by Alan Parsons that features a lot of stereo and doubled instruments. It's called Eye in the Sky, and it's by the Alan Parsons Project on the 1982 album by the same name. So let's focus on the instruments that are both on the left side and the right side that are doubled, such as the guitar part, percussion. So the first method I'd like to talk about is called double tracking. So double tracking means re-recording the same part over and over again. Well, the problem with just duplicating a part in the DAW is that if you pan the original on the left and let's say the duplicate on the right, well, it's just going to end up in the center. And our brain is going to think that it's the same instrument just playing in between. And it's just going to double the signal. So double tracking allows to have all those small differences in the performance to make our brain discern the original take with, let's say, the double tracked signal. So that allows us to pan separate takes on the left side and on the right side. This technique also allows us to leave space in the center while having the same part on both the left side and the right side. One neat trick I use on percussion tracks, for example, if you're recording on the grid on the click, is that let's say you're recording a tambourine. Well, you can just record the tambourine longer. And what I do is I cut the take in half and put the second half on a separate track under the first half. And that's going to allow me to pan both tracks left and right without them collapsing because those were actual different parts of the performance originally. So that's one of the tricks I use on percussion. So the second technique is to delay a duplicate of that original part. So if you have a mono guitar part, let's say, where you can duplicate that, pan them opposite to each other and delay by a couple milliseconds, let's say 20 milliseconds roughly, to get that fake stereo effect. And up to a certain threshold, our brain is going to think that it's still a single source. But the problem that can arise with this technique is that both signals can start to phase and you can have phasing issues with that. But, sometimes, let's say in a guitar track, that phasing effect could be a creative effect that you like to have in the mix. So the third technique is to pan a reverb on the opposite side. So let's say you have the original source signal on the left side. Well, what you can do is you can send that signal on the opposite side, so the right side, and send it to a reverb. So the source is going to be on the left side and the reverb only is going to be on the right side. So what it does is that it still keeps space in the middle, and also it gives the illusion of having this bigger space if you add some pre-delay on the reverb side. And it's going to allow you to balance the mix also. If you only have some elements on one side, well, the reverb is going to counterbalance on the other side. And what's good with this technique also is that it's not going to clutter the mix on the source side of the signal, because that side only has the dry signal and the reverb is going to be only located on the other side. So that's one of the neat tricks of a panned reverb technique. So the fourth technique is to use a mono in stereo out plugin. I'm sure you've seen those plugins lying around in your plugin folder, such as an AutoPan utility or maybe rotary speaker emulation in mono stereo. What I often find myself using is the UAD Fender amp or the UAD Oceanway Studios plugin in mono stereo. So in the case of the Fender amp, if I have a mono guitar track, I can place two different mics on the cabinet and pan them separately in the stereo spectrum. So that allows me to give a different coloration on, let's say, the left side versus the right side in case of a guitar track. Using the Oceanway, I can also widen considerably a mono signal by introducing irregularities in the reverberation space that was measured in the beautiful acoustic spaces of Oceanway Studios. So those are kind of the two plugins I use in mono stereo configuration. So the last technique is called the Haas effect, and you probably heard of it. The Haas effect is when you duplicate a mono signal twice. You pan that left and right, and while keeping the original signal in the center dry, you're going to apply pitch shifting and delay on those two duplicate signals. So you're going to apply +4 cents and -4 cents respectively, and add roughly 20 milliseconds of delay on those pan tracks. And that's going to create this kind of chorus effect that's going to give depth and widen your mono source. And in the 80s, using a chorus on vocals, for example, was really common using the Roland Dimension D. And that's kind of the effect that we hear on Eye in the Sky. And that's another way of widening a mono signal. So that's it. I hope you learned new techniques to widen your mono sources into stereo elements in the DAW. And if I forgot some of the techniques that you know, please comment in the section below and share it with the community, and I'll be sure to highlight the best ones. So if you liked the video, please like and subscribe to my channel for other tips and tricks in the box. And I'll see you next time for another video. Thanks.